What if I told you that mono is actually stereo? In the modern DAWs, what they do is they sum a signal together to create middle and sides. So a lot of you guys see mid-side plugins or mono stereo plugins, but what we don't understand when we're dealing with this stuff is what is true mono and what is true stereo. So let's hop into our DAW real quick because I want to show you guys, when you understand this, your mixing will go to a whole different level. So firstly, let's create a tone so you guys can hear that tone. Now, this tone, once we pan it left, it feels like it's panned to the left. If I pan it to the right, it feels like it's panned to the right. Now, what happens if we play the same exact tone at the same exact time, one pan to the left and one pan to the right? Now, most people think that we're about to hear a stereo sound because you're taught that stereo means just left and right. That's not what stereo truly is. It technically is on a signal level, but stereo, when we talk about the sides, let's just convert the words to sides. When we're talking about the side image, we're actually talking about the difference between the left and the right. Because when you have similarities between the left and the right, you actually collapse them into the middle. Okay, so I got to be careful with the words here. I'll say middle and side as opposed to stereo. Stereo just means you have two things happening, one in your left ear, one in your right ear. True mono is one thing happening. Okay, but mid and side are a whole different concept, which is mid is you can have two things happening, meaning two signals coming through. But if they're the same exact thing on the left and the same exact thing on the right, it actually creates the middle, even though you have a stereo signal. And when you have the side signal, it's the difference between the left and the right. So let's hear what this sounds like. So if you guys guess correctly, properly, you'll know that this creates a centered sound here. Okay, so if I hit play, again, here's the one on the left, same signal on the right. Combine these two together, you actually get the signal in the center. Okay, so when people say middle and side, this is what we're talking about. Now, how do you create a side image from, I'll say, a middle centered image? What you can do is create a small difference. Those differences can be amplitude, it could be phase, and it can also be the tuning or the frequency. So for example, let's change all those values. Let's make the right signal slightly detuned from the left signal. Now we're going to hear a difference. And now the track feels wide. This is what we call side information. It's wider now because of the side information, the difference between the two signals. Whereas before, it sounds centered. The moment you make one small change, now it sounds different. Now, what if we do amplitude? This won't be as obvious with amplitude, but there will be a difference. It'll feel like it's leaning more towards one side. Okay, so it feels like that right thing is a little bit closer than the left signal. And if I turn the right signal down, it feels like the left signal is closer than the right signal. So that's what amplitude differences do. Now, timing differences are unique. So let's go to the wrench tool and let's add some time shift. This is a phase difference, meaning the waveforms don't start at the same exact point. They're going to start offset from each other. This also creates a width without changing the tuning. So you can get stereo width simply from time differences. And this is what people call the Haas effect. The further you go, the more obvious it will become. Now it sounds like a delay, but there's a certain point where it starts to sound like an echo. Okay, now if I pull that back, you can't really hear that time difference. It just feels wider. So you can create stereo width without even changing the tuning of something. You could simply just change the timing. And this is why a lot of professional musicians, they tell you about the groove and how to get in that pocket. It's when you stop quantizing, your beat will sound more full because everything has time to breathe in its own timeline. You're not just stacking everything at the same exact time. So when you add that small difference, everything opens up, okay? So these are tips, master mixing engineers and master producers understand is timing. Timing is everything. So now that you guys understand what, the middle signal is from the side signal, let's record some piano here. And what I'll do is I'll show you how to stereoize it without losing a bunch of stuff. So let's just record some random chords here. Okay, so we're going to pull this mono. So right now it's a stereo keyboard keyscape. Let's hit Control L, and we're going to go to the mixer here and turn this so that it's merged or combined. This is called summing, where they combine the left and the right into one signal. So that's why it's called merged. And now we're going to play a mono signal. Or yeah, mono signal. But technically it's not mono. This isn't true mono. This is simply summation, but it's not technically mono. We still have a left and a right. Okay, so this is, let's open it back up. So sometimes, for producers, we have too wide of sounds. You don't realize it, but when you keep stacking stereoized sounds over stereoized sounds over stereoized sounds, everything's trying to fight for the side image, and it actually ends up making your beat sound smaller because everything can't live on the side. So when you make a couple things live on the side of your track, it opens up the track a lot bigger. And that's something to comprehend is like, it's almost like counterintuitive. You would think that just stereoizing everything would make your track sound bigger. Okay, but that's a mistake a lot of us producers make, is having stuff too wide of a stereo image. So let's pull it in. Now some techniques let's render this so that we can add these techniques to the track. I'll show you guys a couple techniques in FL Studio. The first technique is if we double click without any plugins, you can go to the pre-computed effects. You could do what's called stereo delay. So when I use that time shift on the one sample that was panned to the right versus the left, it's the same exact effect. We're duplicating the signal and we're having the left signal play different than the right signal in time. And this creates a stereo effect. So here's before. Now, if I creep up the stereo delay, it creates that left-to-right phase difference, timing difference. And now we have a wide piano. The only difference in the signal is time. So the difference between the left ear and the right ear is time, but technically this is a centered signal. So I got to be careful with the words again, centered, mono, stereo, because we perceive more so the mid and the sides than we think about stereo. So I'm going to speak in more mid and side as opposed to stereo because we can get granular with it, but but basically mono and stereo really come into play when you have like synthesizers. Like behind me, I have a Yamaha DX7. This is a monophonic synth. If you plug in your electric guitar into your audio interface, that's a mono input. I'm talking into a mic. This is a mono input. But if we were to record my Korg Kronos, for example, that's a stereo input. It has a left and a right because it has different information on both channels. Okay, so the way we perceive stereo, however, you can have a stereo signal, but if there's the same exact information on the left and the right, it creates a middle signal. And most people call the middle signal mono. So because there's like colloquial way to say mono, I'm just going to say middle and sides. So here we have a middle signal. Let's add that stereo delay. Now, what are some other ways to widen up the sample without adding plugins? You could take the same sample, make it unique so that it's treated as a separate audio, double click. You could just change the tuning. So like keep this within one semitone, for example. And then you would pan one to the right, one to the left. Because right now, if you don't pan it, it just sounds like a phase. So right now, I have the same exact thing panned left and right, same volume. Now let's change the tuning of the right signal. The track just opened up without any plugins. And it doesn't need to be a dramatic pitch change either. It doesn't need to be this crazy. Okay, but changing the pitch in this case does change the timing. So if you don't want that to occur in FL Studio, you would switch this to what's called stretch mode. And I would have to use the pitch knob here for more precise values. Okay, so I'm just showing you guys how to think about audio so that you're not like buying a bunch of plugins you don't need, but also too, when you produce, you need to understand how much information is on the side. So the last thing I'll do here is let you guys hear what it sounds like in the side image. So let's route this to channel 2. And let's do this, boom. And we're gonna pull up a plugin. I like the multi-band for this demonstration here, or an EQ, either one. So we're gonna switch this to expert mode. Let's go over here. We're gonna switch this to side, and we're gonna turn this percentage all the way to side only. So now all we're hearing is the side image in this specific frequency range if I solo. So we have to put it on audition mode in order for this to work. So this is how much information is the difference between the left and the right ear. This is a lot of information. So this means the sound needs the left and the right signal in order to really demonstrate itself. There's a lot of information here on the side. So in a mono compatible, I think people like they over emphasize mono compatibility. It's not that serious, but if you guys want to think about the energy of a speaker, for example, if you have the left speaker and the right speaker playing the same exact thing at the same exact time, you get more power or force out of it. So if your left speaker is playing something different than your right speaker, you're not getting that same energy. Okay. So sometimes you want to make things more mono compatible. We're not going to take it into the science because I don't obsess about mono compatibility. So I'm being honest with you guys. But in this case, if your track feels like it's not hitting hard enough, it's too soft, you might want to think about areas where you can pull some of the side information back into mono. So let me show you guys how to do that. So basically the whole piano is on the side, which again, if I switch this to mid mode, let's hear what the piano. You know, we have enough piano in the mid signal. But it seems like the details on the sides. So let's figure out the frequency zone where, you know, the piano really lives. Now the fundamental's not always where it lives. Sometimes the overtones are more where it lives. So I'd say from here to here is kind of where the piano lives, truly. This is the identity of the piano. So let's switch it to the stereo side image. What we're going to do is set a compressor here. Now this compressor is going to keep the volumes the same between your left and the right. So this is going to create more similarity between your left and your right channel. So when you compress the side image, you're giving your signal more of a chance to become more mid, because what you're doing is you're making the information the same on the left and the right as far as volume. Now, as far as tuning and pitch, that's not necessarily the case. But as far as volume, if you reduce the volume changes between the left and the right, they become more sum to the mid. So let's pull this down to where we're actually compressing this piano. So I'm going to make it like super harsh compression here. I want the volume to really be the same in this area. So here's before the plugin. The piano's kind of like on the sides and it's very muddy and kind of wide. Now if we add this compressor, it feels more centered. All right, so this is both a way to make your track more cohesive, but also a caution to people who are overly widening things. Sometimes you can actually use too much mid-side processing and make stuff collapsed. So let's say we want the piano more centered to where it's not distracting on the side. So here's before. Very distracting on the sides with the frequencies, the low frequencies. And now it's more centered with more clarity, some people would call it. That's simply because we're not distracted by the differences anymore. So now they're more the same. So if I were to pull the bass in, piano feels more tamed. One, because of the volume is less dramatic. Even though the piano's not doing a bunch of volume changes, it's more so there's less changes between the left and the right, creating that smeary sound. So here's before. So sometimes when you guys mix, you need to check the side image because a lot of sounds are very side processed, especially with reverbs and delays. You know, they kind of exist from the side information. So that's where the mud in your mix actually is. Here's before. I'm not saying one's better or worse. It's just less going on when you take that side information and pull it back to the center. So I just wanted to make this quick video about, is mono truly mono or is mono actually stereo? And you guys are perceiving it as the middle signal, what people call mono. So share with a friend. Hopefully this, you know, busts some myths and also breaks them out of their rut and mixing. Share with a friend. All right, guys. Peace.